All right, everybody, this is Jason from Passion Fruit, and in this video, we will go over how to solve question 1A from the 2024 CSA exam. Remember, each question we generally get around 10 minutes, so let's see if we can speed run this. Let's get started. Let's read the question together. So, this question, let me make this bigger. This question simulates birds or possibly a bear eating at a bird feeder. The following feeder class contains information about how much food is in the bird feeder and simulates how much food is eaten. Great, so we see here there's int current food. I will actually just make note of this so that we don't forget about it. And there is a method to simulate one day that takes int numbirds as a parameter. And so I will also take note of this. I find this to be helpful because there's so much information. It's nice to have the variables right here where I'm writing my code. All right, let's see what we need to write. So they want us to write the simulate one day method, which simulates this many birds or possibly a bear at the feeder for one day. The method determines the amount of food taken from the feeder on this day and updates current food, this variable. The simulation accounts for normal conditions, which occur 95% of the time, and abnormal conditions, which occur 5% of the time. So already we can start writing out some logic and some pseudocode. I like to do this so that I only have to read the question once, and then I can just figure out the right syntax for my solution. So we can start writing out the code to handle the normal and the abnormal conditions. So I can say if normal condition, this is the 95% case, something will happen, else something else will happen. And we can figure out how to, what the details are here later. So under normal conditions, the simulation assumes that on any given day, only birds visit the feeder and that each bird at the feeder consumes the same amount of food. The standard amount of food consumed is between 10 and 50 grams inclusive. The amount of food eaten by each bird on any given day is randomly generated, and each integer from 10 through 50 inclusive has an equal chance of being chosen. Awesome. So now we know that we need to generate a random number between 10 through 50 that represents how much food each bird eats, and we'll probably have to multiply this by the number of birds to figure out how much total food is being eaten. So we can write this out now. We can say, let's just call it food per bird is equal to some integer. And this is going to be randomly generated, so we'll have to use math.random. And it needs to be between 10 through 50. So again, I'm not worried about the details here. I'm sure we can figure it out. I'll just make note of it. Let's move on. Let's keep reading the question. So it says, if the simulated food consumed is greater than the amount of food in the feeder, then the birds empty the feeder, and the amount of food in the feeder at the end of the day is 0. Also, under abnormal conditions, a bear empties the feeder, and the amount of food in the feeder at the end of the day is 0. Okay, cool. That's really all we need to know. They have some examples for us, but I think this is pretty straightforward. So essentially, after we created this food per bird variable, we need to figure out how much total food is eaten. So we can say total food eaten is equal to food per bird times, look at that, numbirds. And there's a condition here such that if the total food eaten exceeds current food, so how much food is currently in the feeder, this makes current food 0. Essentially, we don't want to have negative current food. Now, if this is not the case, then we just have to subtract total food eaten from current food. So we can write it like this. We can also write, current food equals current food minus total food eaten. Awesome. So that's our normal case. And then else, this is the abnormal case with the bear, current food just becomes 0. Nice. Nice and easy. So the hard part of this question is figuring out how are we going to represent the 95% condition, and then also how do we generate a number between 10 through 50. In both of these situations, we'll be using math.random. So as a quick review, math.random gives us a number between 0.0 and 0.99, 0.99. And it's also a double, right? So to represent a normal condition that represents 95% of all situations, is actually quite straightforward. All we need to do is to say math.random is greater than or equal to 0.05, right? If it's greater than 5%, then that's 95%, and this is our 95% like normal condition. Now, how do we generate a number between 10 through 50? So this actually kind of happens quite often in the FRQ section of the APCSA exam, so this is good to know. It might happen in the 2025 exam or in future years. So the formula, all right, we'll start with the formula. The formula to generate a number between a max number and a minimum number inclusive is math.random times max minus the min plus 1. Now, why does this work? And in particular, why do we have to add the plus 1? So as you can imagine, if we want to generate a number 10 through 50, we can think of this as generating a number 0 through 40, and then tacking on 10, tacking on 10 on top of all this. Right, now, how do we generate a random number that goes up until 40 inclusive? Well, what if we were to just say math.random times 40? What would that give us? Math.random times 40. The maximum number that it can give us is 0.99 times 40. 0.99 times 40 is equal to 39 point something. And 39 point something, once casted into an int, turns into 39. And so that wouldn't work, right? So if we want to get 40 inclusive, we would actually need to do math.random times 41. Because, again, 41 times 0.99 equals 40.99 something. And this, once casted into an int, gives us 40. All right. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, feel free to ask the AI tutor. So ultimately, now, if we want to go from 10 through 50, we just have to multiply this by 41. And on top of it all, add 10. And that's really it. So we have our 95% case, and we also have our 10 through 50. Get rid of this, add the semicolon, and I think that's all we need to do. All right, let's check our answer. Score. All right. As you can see, we got a 4 out of 4. Here are all the scoring criterias. And if you had questions, you can always ask the AI tutor, just like how I did earlier. And that's it. Okay. See you in the next one.